Welcome to this e-learning session on classroom management, a guide to engaging students. So before we begin, what exactly is classroom management? This refers to a wide variety of skills and techniques that peer educators use to keep students organised, orderly, focused, attentive, on task and academically productive. So general classroom management is important for setting expectations and boundaries, so letting the students know exactly what you require of them and they know what they will get from you. It gains respect. It means that you're using your time efficiently, you're not having to take disciplinary actions, and as a result, you have fewer behavioural problems. So obviously classroom management is even more important for you as a peer educator because you have limited lesson time. So you have around 45 minutes to an hour. You're not their usual teacher, which can make things challenging, but we will teach you how to deal with that effectively. Other challenges are lack of experience and proximity and age, and obviously you have an audience with teachers and staff observing, but obviously everyone's there to support you and they want to see you succeed, so it's nothing to be nervous about. Before we proceed into classroom management techniques, it's important to bear in mind that classroom management is not about having the right rules, it's about having the right relationships. So the entire management technique is about promoting positive behaviours and not berating or belittling students. So starting with the peer educator and pupil relationship, every school has their own type of learning environment, i.e. relaxed, strict or fun. It's important that we adapt to the school and what their style is, but it's also important that we balance between dominance and cooperation. So you want the students to feel comfortable and able to talk to you, but also that they still respect you. So it's like getting the balance between those two things. Also accepting that not every student is the same. So how you react to the loud and noisy student if they're acting out of line is very different to how you'll communicate with a shy student that isn't interacting, and you should adapt how you are speaking to them, tone of voice, body language, etc. And obviously once you do this, you've created a safe and secure environment for students and you've made learning fun because everyone feels comfortable. So obviously no student should ever prevent a teacher from teaching or a peer educator from peer educating. In order to achieve this, peer educators must behave assertively, not aggressively or passively. You must consistently communicate your wants and the expected behaviour from the children. This works well because the students see that you're firmly requesting a standard of behaviour and that you will take assertive steps to ensure that they respect your wishes. So this method means that you've given clear, firm direction, and if that's followed, you've met this with positive reinforcement, and if not followed, undesired behaviour is met with negative consequences. So students are not viewed as enemies, but rather and are not treated with a hostile, sarcastic attitude. Rather, students are viewed as allies who are expected to cooperate for the good of all. So if there is a student acting out of line, don't make any assumptions to be aggressive, but politely ask them or remind them what your expectations are. So if you do struggle to be assertive, there obviously are some things that you can implement. It doesn't come naturally to everyone. So we say, first of all, to be authoritative in your speech and your body language. And even if you don't feel it, there's the term fake it until you make it. So be absolutely confident and in control, and think of the growth mindset. So even if you don't feel confident now, you'll feel confident after a couple of sessions. So some of the mantras that you can use to be assertive are to remind yourselves, I will not tolerate any student stopping me from teaching. I will not tolerate any student preventing another student from learning. I will not tolerate any student engaging in behaviour that is not in the other student's best interest. Whenever a student chooses to behave appropriately, I will immediately recognise and reinforce that behaviour, and reminding yourself that you are an assertive peer educator and the boss in that classroom. So another few tips are to make rules very clear, don't be ambiguous, catch students being good and reinforce that positive behaviour, recognise and support students when they behave appropriately, consistently let students know that you're happy with good behaviour, reward exceptional behaviour, and make clear what the consequences are for bad behaviour. The issue with acknowledging bad behaviour is that it can lead to cries for attention, whereas if you're reinforcing that positive behaviour, you're giving attention for the right reasons, and that promotes a positive learning environment. So obviously moving then on to how to increase learner engagement, so making sure that you have that positive environment for everyone, is to use personalisation. So if there's one child that seems to be acting out of line or causing disruption, try and remember their name, and then communicate that to them so they know that you've shown an interest. Another thing is to be open to communication and feedback. So as we discussed in our mental resilience at work training, it's important that you use any feedback that you're given as a learning opportunity to improve and to make the experience better for the students. Another thing is to use interactivity, so making sure you're asking questions, redirecting questions back to the students, stopping at intervals and asking do they understand everything, encouraging questions, and giving meaningful praise when the students do get involved. And this obviously builds trust and gets everyone engaged. So related to this are behavioural expectations. So what you want to encourage are well-behaved students, a lack of distraction, a calm classroom and high engagement levels. What's discouraged are distractions, noise, disrespect and inappropriate comments. So another thing linked to this is, although you will be discussing teenage pregnancy, sexual exploitation and healthy relationships, the content should never be explicit. And obviously, due to maturity levels, students may make inappropriate comments at times, which you should try not to acknowledge. If it does obviously get out of hand, then you can remind them of your boundaries and ground rules. So moving back onto ground rules and how you can create them. So what they need to be is, at the beginning of the session, you speak to the classroom and create the rules together, so it's a team effort. It shouldn't just be a list of do's and don'ts. Justify the rules. So because I say so is not persuasive justification, you can remind them at the beginning of the session, we create these rules together. So that's negotiation with the pupils to get their commitment. And you can then remind the pupils of the rules before any potential disruptive activity, or if you're aware of something brewing, for example, the shop to drop activity, which can get students quite excited. And again, at intervals, regularly get the pupils to self-assess their own behaviour against the rules. So back to promoting positive behaviour, it's about employing a proactive rather than reactive approach. So promote the positive behaviour from the outset and things won't get out of hand. So think back again to how you respond to inappropriate behaviour in the classroom. Are you reactive, or do you wait for problems to happen and then respond? And are you consistent and fair? So remembering that managing behaviour is not just about responding in the spur of the moment, it's about creating conditions that encourage positive actions. So how you can do this is to remind pupils of the rules before activities take place, particularly group activities such as Stop Chew Drop. Reinforce appropriate behaviour using tokens and symbols which can be used for awards and privileges. Encouraging students to self-assess their own behaviour and award them the appropriate tokens. Use individual, group and whole class awards. To receive this, there needs to be very clear success criteria. And mild punishments. What's important is the consistency and fairness of the punishment. Its success is also dependent on the assertiveness in which it is given, which means being firm, unemotional, unapologetic and confident, but it does not mean being hostile or aggressive, and there's a very clear difference. So again, how you can build that relationship with students, even if it's strained, it's important that whether you've been to that school or not before, to meet and greet pupils by the door, get off to a good start, catch them doing the right thing and comment positively in private. A lot of inappropriate behaviour is attention seeking. Smile, use their name positively, ask for their opinion, make a point of looking at their work, comment favourably about genuine effort or achievement, learn their names, engage with the pupils in an informal way. So you don't want them to feel like you're a teacher and to have that barrier because you are a peer educator. So there should be respect, but they should also be able to ask you questions that they couldn't normally ask an adult, because that is how the Straight Talking programme is designed. So you use contact and eye proximity and collaborate and problem solve together. So it can be challenging to cooperate with badly behaved pupils. I'm sure you can think of many times examples of when you or your colleagues have talked about that class or that year group. But first try focusing on putting those negotiating clear rules in place. And you can always seek support from senior management or speak to any of the other peer educators to get some advice if you are struggling. So moving on to some more tips. So it's about building team and group work, developing flexible responses and teaching styles, giving responsibilities to particular pupils. So sometimes pupils need something to focus on, so you could ask them to come up and be responsible for writing responses on the board or something along those lines. And again, reinforce learning goals and expectations and be a good role model. So behave in a way that you'd want the pupils to behave in. So with that, in summary, we would say that there's always support for you in terms of classroom management techniques. There should always be a teacher in the room with you, and you can talk through any concerns with a member of senior management or head office after the lesson, and you can reach out to any peer educators via the WhatsApp group.